Really excited today because I have really a great guest. I have Andy Kahn. And Andy, among many things, you're going to find out a lot of things about him, but he is a member of the Turtles, was and is a member of the Turtles. You probably remember that song. Sing it, Andy.
Oh, so happy together.
Yeah.
I'm not the lead singer, but I'm a keyboard guy.
Yeah, but I tell you something. When I was first taking guitar lessons, I was a little guy about, I don't know, 12 or 13. I went down to Southgate Music Center there in Sacramento, where I lived in South Sacramento, and had my little Tiesco guitar. And I remember one of the first songs that the guitar teacher tried to teach me was Happy Together.
That's great.
Uh-huh.
That's great.
And then I remember going to, I'm talking too much here, I need to ask you some questions. I remember going to Cal Expo and seeing, I didn't go specifically for the concert, but I knew the Turtles were playing there. This had to be in the mid or early 70s. And I knew the Turtles were playing at Cal Expo, which is the state fair in Sacramento. And is it Flo, the guy with the bigger hair?
Flo.
I happened to notice him. Of course, he's noticeable. And he was throwing some nickels or dimes or whatever. And I walked up and I didn't know what to say. I was nervous. And I just said, hey, I like your music, or, you know, something like that. But he was nice and said, thank you. So anyway, now I get to talk to you, one of the Turtles.
Thank you.
How'd you get started in music? And how did you join up with the Turtles? And what year was that? And, you know, start at the beginning a little bit for us.
Music, I used to make monster movies when I was a kid, and I always used to use all this classical music like De Meistersinger or Flying Dutchman Overture or The Rite of Spring, and I loved classical music. And then one day in school we had show and tell, and somebody brought in Del Shannon's Runaway, and that organ solo, and I said, and then the Beatles came out, and that settled it, so I wanted to play music. And then in '68 I moved out to California, and I played with Jimmy Carl Black in a group called Geronimo Black.
That sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, it was the first offshoot from the Mothers of Invention.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And he was the Indian of the group.
So
we had this band, Geronimo Black. We had a record deal with Uni Records in '72, but whatever. We were recording at Cherokee Studios in Box Canyon before they moved to Hollywood. And Flo and Eddie, the Turtles, were doing a soundtrack for a movie called Cheap, also known as Dirty Duck, which was done by the same guy, Merricombe Swenson Wolf, who did the Zappa cartoons and all that. So I said, hey, my name's Andy Kahn. I'm available for keyboards if you need me, and there you go. And Bruce Robb, the engineer from the studio, did some of the keyboard tracks, but he was too busy being an engineer. So I just said, they called me up and they said, can you do it? And that's how I started with the Turtles, and that was like late '72, early '73.
So you're at the right place at the right time, kind of, for that kind of thing. But you moved to LA earlier, and you worked for Mercury Records in the beginning?
Mercury, right.
What'd you do? What did you do there?
Well, I was a gopher.
You know,
get the coffee, check the mail, drive this, do that. It was a subsidiary of Mercury Records called Pulsar Records, which was run by Irwin Garr, who was a friend of my mom's. So I didn't have a job, I had nowhere to go, and so I needed a job. So he said, I'll give you $45 a week to be a gopher. So my job was to drive around a guy named Graham Bond, who's from England. He had a group called the Graham Bond Organization with Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce before the Cream.
Wow, okay.
And he also had a group called the Unholy Three with Cass, Mama Cass, and Tim Rose. But anyhow, Graham Bond brought the Mellotron to the United States.
Oh, I love Mellotron
And so that's how I met Graham Bond, by driving him around in my Volkswagen bus and taking him here and taking him there and stuff.
I know you're the demo doctor too, and I want to ask some questions about that, but just quickly, do you still have a Mellotron by any chance in your studio?
No, but I have Mellotron samples.
Real Mellotron samples. That's probably even better,
That's great.
Well, I know you've recorded with a lot of people, and I want to ask you some questions. I'm talking fast because there's so many people you've recorded with.
That's okay, I go fast too.
Like Ringo. I want to hear about Ringo. How'd you meet Ringo, and how'd you get going? What'd you do with him in the studio and all? I know you had a dream also, you're telling me.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, a long time ago, I had a dream that the Beatles are the reason I'm a musician.
Me too.
But I had a dream one day, night, that I was sitting with a Beatle, and I looked down, and he wasn't wearing any shoes. And it did come true, because I befriended, is that the right word, Harry Nilsson?
Right, Harry Nilsson, right.
Became his good friend, and so we had Ringo come over to my studio to do children's stories.
Wow.
Where I would do the background music and Ringo would be reading these children's stories. So that's sitting on the shelf.
You still have that on the shelf,
Still
huh?
on the shelf.
Speaking of Nielsen, we're going to show a little clip of Nielsen. That this is something in your home.
This is in my living room.
About what year was it again?
This is 93.
93. And well, maybe if they're ready in the control room, maybe we'll show this little 2-minute clip. Then we'll talk about it when we come back. Let's do that, please.
See, there is and then there isn't. Hello, everybody. Bunch of us, this was your tape. Gotta groom myself. Doesn't look a day over 50, does he? Here at Andy's place, where the immortal classic, want a drink? I can't think of the name of the immortal classic. It was cut for the lawyer. Let me read these following complaints.
Following complaints, he had neuropathy and phlebitis and diabetes, and it was a rough.
Just for our audience, just as a little remembrance, what was some of his hits again?
Well, he had 2 Grammys. One for Midnight Cowboy, for Everybody's Talking About Me.
Everybody's
That was
Talking.
written by Fred Neil. And the other one was Without You.
Oh, that's what
the
I was
one that
thinking about.
Mariah Carey covered, which was written by the 2 guys from Badfinger who died.
Oh, he seemed to kind of have a lot of death around him, huh?
Yeah.
But plus he died. Of course, we're all going to die. But
Yeah, but he's also done, put the lime in the coconut.
oh, he wrote that? Or
Yeah, he wrote that.
I
and
see.
he also did Me and My Arrow. He
Oh,
had
really?
a cartoon called Nielsen's The Point.
Wow.
He's tons. Well, very well respected.
Oh, yeah, and I know he was one of the Beatles' favorite singers and
Songwriter,
songwriters.
yeah.
In fact, you had mentioned that he told you some Beatles stories. Why don't you tell us one or two? I would love to hear that.
Well, this is interesting because Flo and Eddie were doing a live broadcast at Universal City Studios in 1990 in October, 1989 at Oktoberfest. And they had all these celebrities come down, and they had about 30 radio stations, live satellite broadcast of all these celebrities' interviews. So Mark Volman rented me a limo that I drove, and I brought my keyboard down to this tent on the lot. Everybody had their own tent, and we get Mickey Dolenz and Eric Burden and Bobby Hatfield and Ray Manzarek and Elvira and Weird Al. And one of the guests was Harry Nielsen. So I went to Harry's house, picked him up in the limo, opened up the back door, and he says, "Nah, I'll sit up front with you." And then on the Ventura Freeway, we're driving back to Universal, stuck in traffic. And of course, Beatles.
Right.
We were talking Beatles. And one of the very interesting things was he said that Mama Cass and Keith Moon both died in his bed in his London flat. When he wasn't there, he'd have other people stay at his London flat.
Wow, that's
And
weird.
I said, well, that's cool.
I would never stay at his house. Probably wouldn't be a good idea. Have him come to your house.
Yeah, that's true.
Did he tell you a couple of Beatles stories?
Beatles stories. The truth about the troubadour, the famous troubadour incident.
Oh, when
that
him
famous
and
photograph
John,
with
him and John. This is after John broke up with Yoko, and he decided to be a bachelor
The
for a
Lost
while.
Weekend.
The Lost Weekend. He was with Nielsen at the Troubadour, and John got in a fight, or he got in a,
what he
what
did
was
is
the true story?
Well, he took a Tampax out and he
That's
put
right.
a wart on his forehead, and the waitress got uptight and complained to the bouncer. And
Which
the
put
bouncer,
the Tampax on his head? John.
John.
I see.
And so Harry was protecting John because the bouncers were kicking them out. They were sitting at the table with the Smothers Brothers.
Wow.
And
They're kicking them
and somebody else was there too. So some other Keith Moon or somebody. Ringo, the Smothers Brothers, and John and Harry were all sitting at the table. So
see.
they were getting kicked out of the Troubadour. And so there's a famous photograph you've seen a lot of Beatles with Harry protecting John.
Yeah,
and,
I've seen that. Yeah.
but the truth of the matter is that the next morning they had to go to court for that incident.
Yeah.
And they needed proof that they didn't do the fight. So Jimmy Webb, who wasn't there, was asked to appear in court by John and Harry, and so he told the judge, "Oh, they didn't do nothing. It was cool."
Jimmy Webb, he wasn't there?
He wasn't even
He was
there.
in Phoenix at the
Yeah,
time, right?
he was in Phoenix, or either climbing a
I
Wichita.
love Jimmy Webb songs.
Yeah, he's great. He's terrific.
Just love those songs.
He recorded in my studio too with Harry.
He did?
Yes, we did a song that he wrote called "What Does a Woman See in a Man," and he played my plastic keyboard. And of course, he's a real grand piano guy, so he hates plastic
Yeah,
keyboards.
like a little Casio thing or
Yeah,
something?
it's a Ensoniq, but he's
Ensoniq.
He wanted to play a real piano, but Harry and I kind of slapped him around until he finally came
Yeah.
through.
We got to show another one of your clips. I think we have a thing from MSNBC you did that describes your website.
Right.
And it will even, I think it tells your email or your website address. So maybe before I start talking too much, we should go ahead and show that, clip of MSNBC.
Okay, let's show that clip.
He calls himself the most famous musician you never heard of, but now you can learn all about him on his own website, which is tonight's Side of the Night. Andy Kahn is the keyboard player for the 60s group The Turtles, and now he's helping other musicians make it big as well. Welcome. The
Pleasure.
Turtles. What's a big hit from the Turtles?
So happy together.
Okay, I've heard of that. They had a couple
Yes.
others as well.
Oh, yeah. The You, Baby, Nobody But You. Or You Showed Me What to Do.
All right, I get it. I heard of all
There's
those.
a bad bunch.
Why did you decide to start a website?
Well, because I love the internet, number one, and it's just like, it's so easy to communicate with other musicians and other people, and to hear other people's music, and for them to hear my music, and it's just wonderful.
Your
It's
page is
perfect.
very personal. I mean, you have your bio
Yes.
on there,
Yes.
which is a list of really all the folks you've played with, and
Right.
they're pretty famous
Yeah.
people.
Ringo Starr and Harry Nilsson and Jimmy Webb and Eric Carmen and Ray Bolger and Frank Zappa and the Monkees.
How many years have you been in the business?
Since I was 10 years old.
Which is how many
Like,
years?
Well, I'll be 50 come December.
Wow, so
Yeah.
quite a while.
I'm an old fogey. What can I tell you?
Okay, you also have a friends section on your website, which is
Yes.
some really great pictures.
Yeah,
now, I know
these
that the first one that you see, you and the presidents,
Oh yeah, that was
is fake.
that was a real picture. It was taken at a little party.
Yeah,
We had a little
yeah.
barbecue in the yard. Yeah.
But you have, some real pictures of the folks you played
Yeah.
with.
Ringo and Harry Nilsson and Eric Carmen and Ray Bolger.
Why do you put those up on your website? I mean, is this sort of to keep in touch
Actually,
with people, to
yeah,
let people know?
I
who
get
you-
a lot of email from a lot of people who, whatever happened to Eric Carmen, or whatever happened to Jimmy Webb, and how can I get a hold of him and stuff. So I email them back and tell them where to get a hold of them, and other websites that have their material and stuff, and
You
try
link
to
to as
network.
well. Now, you've got a discography, which
Yes.
is pretty extensive, considering you've been in the business 40 years.
Yes, yes, it has a list of every single thing I've played on
And
that
you-
I'm aware of.
You've played keyboards and...
And I actually play drums and keyboards and guitar and
Bass and flute.
Okay, well, anyway, you would have to do that right before we go on.
I know.
The email address or his website address isn't available on there, but at the end there's a Kaleidospace or K-Space website, which is also my website, and through that you can get to Andy's too real easy. In fact, he's the artist of the
Spotlight thing.
Spotlight artist.
Yeah.
I got to ask you too,
Okay.
while we're on the subject, about Little Richard.
Little Richard.
You used to play. You went on tour with Little Richard.
Yes,
What
we-
year?
73 and 74, we toured the United States in Richard Nader's Let the Good Times Roll with the Five Satins and Chuck Berry and all these
Oh.
50s groups. And there were only 3 white guys on the tour, and we sat in the back of the bus.
You sat in the back of the bus, huh?
But when we went to Australia with Little Richard twice.
Uh-huh.
And that was really great. We were treated like the Beatles, they just first-class red carpet, screaming
Wow.
girls.
Man. You played keyboard, of course?
Yes, I played the organ.
Organ.
And
like
then-
a big B3?
Right, a Hammond B3, and he was on the grand piano for the first 1 or 2 songs. Then he'd jump up and go flying all over the place. Then I got up off the organ and go to the piano.
I see. Wow, that's totally cool.
But I had
That's
2
legendary.
I know, it's incredible. The guy's
incredible.
He is like the apex.
Yeah.
The best. The best.
Uh-huh.
He's incredible.
Do you have any interesting stories you might want to share?
Well,
on the road with Little
Richard. I was in
want.
Sydney, Australia, and we were staying at the King's Hyatt. And so he called me up to his room.
Oh.
Meanwhile, I had a couple of groupies in my room, and I said, I'll be right back. And I went up to his room, and he said, Andy, I'll give you some money if you... And I said, no, I have two beautiful girls down in my room right now.
Oh, yeah?
And then after that, he didn't really...
I think I know what you're saying when you're
Yeah,
talking about it. I'm surprised he kept you on the tour then, since you like rejected him.
Yeah, he kept me on the tour, but I think after that it kind of, it
was different?
He couldn't get his way, so.
Oh.
And he usually got his way for everything.
I bet he does.
Oh, yeah.
You know, time's going to fly. I got to ask you about one more artist, Jimi Hendrix, that you played with. What's the deal? What's the deal there, man?
That's when I was working for Graham Bond at Pulsar Records back in 1968. Graham calls me up and he says, Andy, we got a session. Oh, no, he didn't even tell me it was a session. He said, just come pick me up. Oh, and bring your harpsichord. I played a harpsichord going through a Hammond Leslie and stuff.
Oh,
it was really cool.
That's neat.
It was really cool. So I brought my harpsichord. I go to the TT&G studios on Sunset in La Brea.
Okay.
And Mitch Mitchell was setting up the drums, and Lowell George was getting his flute ready, and Graham Bond was getting the Hammond B3 ready, and Jack Cassidy from the Jefferson Airplane. And I'm setting up my B3, and my back is to the studio door, and I felt something. And then I turned around, and in walks Hendrix with two blonde chicks, one carrying his guitar and one carrying his amp. He set up, we did the blues in E for 2 hours, veins popping out of the neck, and that was it. And it was like incredible. It was just, I couldn't believe it.
Was there any tape to that?
Somewhere, there's a tape. If anybody has it, I'll give you $1. No, I'd like to have a copy.
Wow, that's an
I'd
incredible
like to have
story.
a copy of that tape.
Man, that's amazing.
Yes.
You know, you are the demo doctor. Now that's one of the things you do. You have your own studio where people can come in and you can help them with their demos and all. And you were featured on CNN, the showbiz section, not too long ago.
Yes.
And I think we have like 60 seconds of that or something too. So
it's actually 30 seconds long.
Okay, let's see that then real quick if we can.
Okie doke.
If you dream of making it in music, you need drive, determination, and something else, a demo tape. All the talent in the world won't get you anywhere without one. Paul Verkammen followed some aspiring stars in Los Angeles as they put heart and soul on cassette.
Making demo tapes can cost up to a few $1,000s, down to $100 a tune, courtesy an ex-Turtle, the Demo Doctor, Andy Kahn.
And my stage of the game is like the pre-production stepping stone stage.
Kahn has worked with Ringo Starr and now helps this rapper from Rancho Cucamonga.
Fly G, McGee, you have no way of knowing when I start to blow which way that I'm going.
It's a whole art form. You have your lyrics, your music. You have to practice it out till you get it down pat, and then you kick it out.
Let me put the kick drum in here.
Dr. Demo plays to record moguls' short attention spans.
You have to catch their attention within the first 25, 30 seconds. If you don't, they pop the cassette out of the machine and next.
Okay, well that's cool, Andy. You can do any kind of music then, huh?
It doesn't matter what.
I can tell you're an really excellent musician.
Thanks.
Speaking of that, just quickly for the up-and-coming artist, what would you suggest to a person starting now in the 90s that want to get their music out there and exposed? What would you suggest?
Record a professional, broadcast quality, radio-friendly demo. And if you have a budget, hopefully independently manufacture and produce and sell it and get your, get airplay and press.
So basically, you have to, that's what a lot of people say when they come to my show, that you have to create your own buzz.
Yeah.
And then maybe somebody will pick you up if they see you're already going.
Yeah.
You're already making money.
Yeah, you're at the mercy of the sister, of the brother, of the uncle, of the owner of the record company, and he's sitting behind a desk. He's got 8,000 tapes on the floor.
Yeah.
And you're just one in the shuffle, and it's real difficult. It's like going to Vegas and gambling. The odds are real against you there.
Right. Okay, that sounds good. We ought to show your CD that you, this is kind of a, not kind of, it's a retrospective, is that correct?
Yes.
Meaning you have, it goes from the earliest, no, the newest to the earliest?
Right.
Kinda
It's from the
remember.
90s to the 60s. It's 30 years of all the demos I made.
Oh, I see.
It's like the greatest hits of somebody you never heard of.
I see.
It's a good concept.
All the way from the 60s.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is called, oh, you go by, is this what you go by, Snarfell? Or
Snarful.
Snarfell. Is that your name now?
Yeah,
or?
my children named me that.
That's what I was going to ask you. Where'd that come from?
We did a cartoon that we never got the budget for, but it was called The Adventures of Snarny and Nuki.
I see.
And my children, who were 5 and 9 at that time, thought of all these crazy, fun names. And there were 2 lead characters in the cartoon, Flarfel and Snarfel.
I see.
And they were 2 sea monsters. And,
These are your kids,
and they
huh?
saved the kingdom from the mean Kabligi.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, fun stuff.
How would you? How has the music business, in your estimation, changed in the last, say, 20 years or longer since you've been in it?
It's so overkill. In the 60s and 70s, you can just, it was much easier to get a record deal, and at that time you can sit down at a out-of-tune piano or play guitar for an A&R guy, and he can envision what it's supposed to sound like. Nowadays, you got to come out with full tilt, professional, knock.
Ready to go.
Yeah, you got to knock their socks off right away.
Yeah.
Because
That's the way it is.
unfortunately, that's what it's like now.
Yeah. Well, probably if we go in your studio, that would fit the bill, probably.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that.
I'm sure you can. It sounds like it. Andy, thank you very,
You're
very
very
much for my
welcome.
guest. I really enjoyed it. I have a million more questions I could ask you, but maybe we'll do another show and I can ask you some more of those stories.
I'd love to, as long as I can wear your jacket.
Okay.
I love your jacket.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate
Great
it.
jacket.
Okay, so watch for that email address at the end, and if you want to get a hold of Andy through the K-Space website, him and I are both on there, and check that out. And we'll see you soon. Good night.